Hey guys, welcome to Surviving to Thriving. One of the areas that I see that really plagues a lot of people that struggle with survival brain or that struggle with, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of mental anguish, a lot of emotional anguish is this concept of perfection and shame. And I know Brene Brown talks a lot about perfection and shame. I love her comment about, hey, if perfection's driving, shame's in the shotgun, right? Or shame's riding shotgun, or vice versa. And then I think procrastination's in the back seat. But I notice perfection, not in the sense of how things look. Like if you walked into my office, you'd see I am not a perfectionist, nor do I want to label anybody out there as a perfectionist. I don't want to call you perfectionist. I don't want you to label yourself as a perfectionist, but to identify where and what that really means to see perfection and shame and where that really ties together and what it all means to kind of bring it into human form, if you will. So if we look at this concept of perfection, think about somewhere that you may be failing, or I don't even know if I want to use the word failing, but where you're falling short. So if you think about falling short, where are you falling short? And I know for most people, falling short, like if they look at their parenting or them being a significant other, they're going to find somewhere where they're falling short. Business, financial, spiritually, I don't know. There's somewhere in your life, I'm sure, where you feel like you're falling short. Where is that? And let's take a look at that. And rather than give it the name perfection or you have perfection around it, my guess is that's what it is. And here's why. You have a different discussion or you have a different word for it. Maybe you use the word good or great or excellent or really well done. Or maybe it's just I'm just doing life. I don't know, but we have different names for it, but actually is perfection. And here's why. So if you think about that thing you're falling short of, and I'll take, for example, in my life, me falling short of being a great parent. And I always fall short of being a great parent. I'm supposed to be this great parent. I have a perfect image of how a great parent is. That's perfection. And I always fall short of it, and then I feel shame about it. I'm not a good enough dad. And when we look at shame, we're not saying that, hey, I made some bad decisions as a dad. Like, I'm a bad dad if I don't live up to this place that I think that is an excellent dad or a perfect dad. So what we do is we create in our minds these things called mental constructs, expectations, blueprint, whatever you want to call them. But we create in our mind and our subconscious. Here's what's crazy. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between perfection and reality. So a lot of times we get these mental constructs or these blueprints from crazy places. Like I got my blueprint or my idea of where a great father comes from watching the 80s sitcoms or movies in the 80s, right? So I don't know if any of you remember the TV show Family Ties. Michael J. Fox was, the kid in it, and he was full of, these very heavy views and needed to be right about a lot of stuff. And there was other children in there, and I watched that show a lot. I watched that TV show a lot, and I learned, unlike today, 2022, in the 2000s, dads were buffoons on TV. But back then, they had it together. The Family Ties dad had it together. He never yelled at his kids. He handled things really well. He handled it smoothly, even though he had completely different views. He never raised his voice. He never made them feel bad. He never said anything wrong. He was a perfect dad. And I created that construct in my mind from watching the 80s TV shows and watching dads in 80s TV shows, right? They were the perfect dads. Even the Cosby Show, remember? Now we know that individual is not a perfect dad in any way, shape, or form, or a perfect human being, and far from it. But in the show, perfect dad. So I watched TV in the 80s and learned how to be a perfect dad. I created a mental construct, a blueprint for what I thought a dad was. And then it's really perfection because I've created it. And not only was it created on TV, but I added some things to it in my own mind. Knowing my subconscious doesn't know the difference between perfection and reality, or not knowing that, I created the perfect dad. And every time I fall short, I go into shame. So I'm a bad dad. But isn't it because I've created a construct around this? Like I've created some image around what this is supposed to look like or be like. It's like I always fall short of being a great husband because I watched husbands in the 80s sitcoms, and those husbands never messed up. They never screwed up. I learned how to be, a really amazing lover watching 80s movies, right? And that's my construct of being like, you need to be this kind of a guy. You need to be this kind of a significant other. Like, how many of you remember Tom Cruise, Maverick? Now today, Tom Cruise, different dude. Not talking about the same guy, but back then, Maverick. I know they're bringing back out Top Gun and Maverick now, but back then, I mean, shirt off, like playing volleyball, like stud. And what would he do? He went into a bar and he wooed this woman by singing a song. Doesn't even have a great voice, and he's able to sing this song in front of everybody with all the guts in the world and woo her and googly eyes. And then Tom Cruise, there he is, and look how he is and that's my image of how it was supposed to look. So you can imagine me, awkward 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old walking around trying to be Tom Cruise, trying to be Maverick. Didn't work out so well, right? To this day, though, all of those mental constructs of what a husband's supposed to be, perfect, by the way. I've created a perfect scenario, and I always fall short. So I'm always falling short of that perfection. And then I go into shame. I'm a bad husband. Not, hey, I made some bad decisions or I've chosen to go down this path. It's I'm bad, which is shame, not guilt, right? The big difference between guilt and shame is guilt is I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake. So if you think about shame being every time I fall short of that. So think about it. And I remember recently talking to a client, and she gave me permission to share this, that she got her construct from how her mother was towards her. Her mother was awful. Her mother was horrible. So because of that, she created a construct of how to be the perfect mom. I'm never going to yell. I'm never going to do this wrong. I'm never going to make my kids feel bad. I'm going to be at every single event they ever do, ever. I'm going to take them to school every day and pick them up every day. I mean, some of the things that she created were pretty unrealistic, right? And that was her vision or version or blueprint of a mom, of a great mom, of a good mom. But it's really perfection, right? We use those words good, great, awesome, amazing. But really what we're saying is perfection, because our construct is perfect scenario. If I had you sit down right now and create in your mind your perfect dream home, you wouldn't go, oh yeah, there's paint chipping over here, or there's cracks in the foundation, or there's shoes in the hallway. But there would be, wouldn't there? Even your dream home. So brain creates the perfect version of things. And then it comes back into reality and thinks that's the way it is. I got my version of a dad and a husband from 80s sitcoms, 80s movies. Remember The Love Boat? How many of you remember The Love Boat? And Doc. Remember Doc? Doc got all the ladies. Geeky glasses, geeky hairdo. He got all the ladies. Like if I could just be like Doc. Oh man, right? How can I act like Doc? So my mental construct of how to be a man came from 80s sitcoms. Unrealistic, right? What was really going on behind a lot of those shows? You guys remember the Brady Bunch? Perfect dad, perfect mom, blended family. They got along most of the time. They had little irritations, but in the end, they were always happy. 22 minutes later, everything was always better. But what was really going on in real life behind those shows? Like, I don't know, the son's, having an affair with the mother and like crazy stuff going on, right? So what's the reality? We create the perfect scenarios about what these things are. And we come back and we fall short and we feel shame. So where are you falling short? And wherever you're falling short, do you have the perfect construct of how that's supposed to look? Do you have the ideal vision or version of what that is. And then you fall short. And then you go into shame. And again, shame is, I am a bad blank. I'm a bad this. I'm not good at this. I can't do this. I am shame, right? And we beat ourselves up, and more shame and more beating ourselves up creates more and more of that shame. So we got to get good at, Brené Brown calls this shame resilience. I love her term, shame resilience. How do we get shame resilient? Well, when you're in shame, best thing and most important thing you got to do first and foremost is to say, I'm in shame. I got it. I'm here. I'm in it. Like, you give light to it. You shine light on it, because shame likes to live in the dark, in the shadow. It likes to feel sorry for itself. It likes to be in victim mode. It likes to live in that place, the abyss, right? We've talked about the abyss, and it likes to live in that space where I don't want to explore. It's just like, let's ignore it, right? But I want to feel sorry for myself. If I'm a victim, I have pity. It's like it doesn't want light shined on it. So we got to go, I'm in shame. We got to name it. The other day I was feeling this way with my kids. Like, I was a bad dad. And of course I'm like, feeling like I wasn't being as active as I should with them and interacting. They were having fun with me and joking around, and I was irritable. I was hungry. I was tired. I was stressed. And I was just being an old, curmudgeon. Is that a good word? Like, I was being an old fart. I was being the 50-year-old, like, get away from me. And I was just being mean because I was irritable and frustrated. So I'm like, I'm such a bad dad, because I watched how they reacted to me, and I'm like, I treated them bad, and what a lousy dad I am. And then I was in shame. And then I beat myself up even more. And then I did what my brain likes to do, which is then isolate, protect myself, become emotionally unavailable, check out, numb, instead of, I'm in shame. Because more shame is either going to lead me to even feeling worse about myself. It's a dangerous place, because then I can even get even more dangerous in shame. Or I can create this checkout, this protection. So it's like, I got to name it. When I name it, I'm like, hey, I'm in it. It's shame. Like, this is it. Because when I name it, I can do something about it, right? I got it. I name it. That's step one. Step two is asking, what is the expectation that's fueling this? So again, this goes back to this blueprint. What's the blueprint you created about the perfect scenario, about how it's supposed to look, whether it came from 80 sitcoms, 90 sitcoms, movies, books, the fact that you didn't have somebody show up that certain way, or just something you created. You mentally created it in your mind. And my guess is you created it perfect, because brain created the perfect scenario. Subconscious doesn't know the difference between perfection and reality, creates the perfect scenario. It's why you can go on vacation and be in paradise and be miserable, because you created an expectation or a blueprint of how the vacation was supposed to go. And then it didn't go that way. Frustrated, disappointed, upset, in paradise. Any of you ever been upset or frustrated or disappointed or even resentful while you're in paradise? It's because of an expectation, a mental construct that was created. We do the same thing in most areas of our life. We're not even aware of it. There's this place inside of us called the vivid visionary, and it's a subconscious area. I'm not saying you don't visualize things. You just got to be careful not creating the perfect scenario, right? Because then life's going to always fall short. You will always fall short. So second step is in shame is, what's the expectation fueling this? And for me the other night, it's, the expectation that I'm the family ties dad. Yeah, I'm not, right? So I had to recognize and be clear about what's fueling this. What is fueling this shame? There's some expectation or blueprint fueling it. What is it? And where did it come from? Sometimes it's helpful to know, where did this stuff come from? Did it come from, parents? Did it come from something you just dreamed up? Did it come from an 80s movie? Not a great place to learn how to become a human being, right? Any movies for that matter. So third step, what's the truth about this? Like, what's the truth about what's going on? So for me the other night, the truth that's going on is that I'm irritable. I'm hungry. It's been a hard day. I'm just feeling anxious. And because of that, I don't have a lot of patience for a lot of this shenanigans that was going on, right? Teenage shenanigans. But they were just playing. They were just having fun, right? And I was being a curmudgeon, right? I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't even know where I heard. I probably heard that from some '80s movie, right? The curmudgeons. So yeah, it's recognizing what's the truth. Step 4 in shame resilience. What do I need right now? So what do I need right now? And what I know I don't need is more shame. What I know I don't need is more judgment. What I know I don't need is abandonment. What do I need in that moment? What does that part of me that's feeling shame need? My guess is it's going to need compassion and grace. Maybe some awareness or just recognition or, hey, it's okay. Maybe it just needs a little talk. Like, what do I need? What does that wounded part of me that's feeling shame need? Because chances of it bringing up that old wounded part of me from a little kid, I'm the 8-year-old, the 9-year-old, the wounded child, it's probably pretty high, right? So I'm going to come up and that part of me that's wounded is going to show up. And then I'm going to go, yeah, I'm really bad. And here's all the areas I'm bad. It's like a river that flows. Where focus goes, energy flows. And if your focus is on shame, it starts the flow and the river's flowing shame, 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 shame. And what we want to do is put up a big dam and block it and go, let's divert this into a different direction because this flow is not working. More shame is going to create more shame. So that's why naming it, identifying what is funneling that, the expectation that's creating that, what's the truth about it, and then, hey, what do I really need right now? Compassion and grace. So in that moment yesterday, I was like, hey, you know what? Like, give yourself a break here. Like, you were irritated, you're bothered. Like, it's okay. You're a good dad. In fact, it's okay to be an ordinary dad. I don't have to be the perfect, most excellent family ties dad. Some of you may struggle with that. Ordinary. Listen, ordinary is beautiful. I'm looking out right now at a beautiful blue ordinary sky, a beautiful ordinary tree, beautiful flowers. They are very ordinary, but very incredible at the same time. So you get to be ordinary and be beautiful. And sometimes in those moments, it's saying, I don't need to be exceptional. It's okay that I'm in this moment just being a dad. My kids just need me. Just my presence alone is enough right now. And that's okay. And then you might even go to step 5. Step 5 is not always required, but sometimes it is, especially if you go really offline, right? And step 5 would be you speak it and you go communicate it to somebody who's earned the right to hear it. So that could be a spouse. I could, for me, the other night, it was even my kids. It was like, hey guys, I just want to let you know, I'm so sorry for being an old fart, the old 50-year-old that didn't want to have any fun. I'm in a lot of shame about this. I just wanted to let you know. And not that they take it on themselves and start going, oh, we made you feel that way. Or I'm not making them feel like they made me feel this way. I'm communicating to them that I'm in shame so they know why I'm offline, right? And if I was go to my wife, she's like, oh, I do that all the time. I'm sorry. She might then be able to show up with empathy. She could go to me too, right? Or at least have the empathy or the time to understand. And that's what happens when you speak it. So that's shame resilience. And that's perfection. So again, perfection and shame being kind of tied together. That's how they're tied together. That's how it shows up in most humans that I see. So I was getting a kick out of sharing where I get my mental constructs from and the 80s TV shows and the movies and where I learned how to be a man. And it's not really a great place to learn how to be a man or a great husband or a great father because chances of them being perfect are pretty high. Now, again, 2000s, you know, so many different things. Like Homer Simpson, that's not the ideal dad, right? So you might do just the opposite. I'm going to do everything that Homer Simpson does not do. Dads are looked at, sometimes parents are looked at like buffoons, especially men in our society on TV. Dads especially are looked at a lot like buffoons, right? The goofballs, the ones that don't have it together. And that wasn't the case in the 80s. So I guess there was some good. And we went from perfect dads to complete idiots, right? Somewhere in there, there's a balance. Somewhere in there, there's ordinary. No TV shows about ordinary because nobody wants to watch a TV show that's ordinary. But giving you permission to be ordinary, giving you permission to recognize where perfection and shame show up in your life and create problems. So, guys, remember, success is a conscious choice. So is shame. So is perfection. Choose wisely. We'll see you soon.